Which was your next test series?
Back home, I played against Pakistan, who were just raised test status. But because India had lost in England, I was made scapegoat and had lost the test captainship. I played under Amarnath. I have never bothered if I have lost the test captainship. I never bothered if I was captain or just a player in the side. I scored 146 not out in the Bombay Test. It was my fourth Test century at Brabourne Stadium. I was one for the few to score 400 at the same Test venue.
Yes, that is one of the rare records. So far, you have toured England and Australia. Did you make any more tours?
I toured the West Indies in January 1953. I was again appointed as captain. This was as puzzling as my earlier deposing. This was my last tour, and I played my last test on the tour. On this tour also celebrated my only birthday abroad.
This being so, what are your memories of this tour?
My personal contribution was not much. I started with an unbeaten century against Trinidad, but I made only 150 in Test. Still, I regarded this as my best and most pleasant tour. The youngsters took the load off me. There was a sizable population of Indian origin, and most of the time we ate Indian food. We drew 4 of our 5 tests in our only defeat. The wicket played a big part as it had cracked right at start.
But after this, did you announce your retirement from Test cricket?
I did not think it necessary to take a regular announcement, as at 38 I thought I had enough of Test cricket, but I was asked to play in 3 unofficial tests against visiting side. It was called the Silver Jubilee Overseas side because our Cree Control Board wanted to celebrate its Silver Jubilee in 1953-54.
In this Silver Jubilee series, were you again India's captain?
Mercifully, no. I was just a player. In the Bombay match, I had a good partnership with Mankad. It recalled memories of our stand in the Lord Tests in 1952.
Did you play any other matches except those unofficial tests?
I played at Baroda against SGOC, named score 175 not out. I recall that in the last over of a day's play, I was batting with 98. Worrell, the opposing captain, tried to tempt me into hope that I would lose my wicket in trying to complete my century before the close. I refused to be wicket in trying to complete my century before the close. I batted next day and I completed my 100 and Worrell sportingly complimented me.
Yes, that was Worrell all over. Did you score centuries in Ranji Trophy too?
Twice I scored centuries against Bombay and against Gujarat. I scored a double century.
This means you are in very good form. Did these scores not lead to your test recall?
Actually, when the Australians played a 3 test series in 1956-57, the Calcutta crowd put posters, "No Hazare, no test." I was thousands of miles away and did not know anything about it. Again in 1958-59, when the West Indies came to India, Merchant wrote a letter in the newspaper asking for my recall to a test cricket. At 43, I was not in the best shape for the test cricket. I had seen how Headley had done badly when visited India at 40. I believed it was best to quit when going was good. I had already had a good time and was happy with it.
I should say they were noble sentiments. But you had not retired from first class cricket.
I continued to play Ranji Trophy and other matches. In 1957-58, Baroda won the Ranji Trophy for the fourth time. Earlier, we had won in 1942-43, 1946-47, and 1949-50. In the final, I scored 10 double centuries of my career.
So it means that you had a very great say in Baroda's victories over the years in Ranji Trophy. Did you play in any other important matches that season?
I played in a match called the Past Against the Present in 1957-58. I scored 166 during that inning. I hit 4 sixers because I batted in the company of C.K. Naidu. I must have got the inspiration to hit sixes, which I rarely did. Then, when we batted together, our combined age crossed the century mark. He was 63 and I was 43. Earlier, I played 2 matches against the overseas side, which came on the occasion of a silver jubilee of Calcutta club. At Calcutta, I scored 60 and satisfied the people who had glamour for my inclusion in the test side. In the match against the same side at Bombay, I was going strong when I broke a finger from a ball from Truman. During my tests and first class career over 20 years, I never suffered any major injury, but in this festival match, I broke a bone of my finger.
That is the way of cricket, always unpredictable. But how long did you continue to play?
When I became a test selector, my appearance in first class cricket became fewer. I played in one game against Pakistan tourists when I was the chairman of the test selection committee. My first class match was benefit match at Nagpur in 1967. It was against the touring West Indies side. I made 68 in my last first class inning. In 1981, when I was 65, and without any practice for years, I played in one day exhibition match for Indian veterans against overseas veterans. All were over 50. I scored 50. It was an enjoyable match, but the unaccustomed exercise gave me a lot of pains and aches.
So it was an all daddies match. But do you recall any other first class matches?
One that I recall was that I played in England. It was in 1951 when I was playing in Lancashire League, a Commonwealth 11, captained by Barnett of Australia, played against an England 11. It was almost like a mini test, playing against England 11. I scored a century. Wicks, Wall, and Headley of the West Indies were in my side. My century came in about 2 hours and a quarter. It was fast scoring by any standard.
Did you play in any other tournaments in India except these Ranji Trophy and others?
I remember playing in Nagpur quadrangular in the early 1940s. I scored 244 in a match which was a record for the tournament. In 1941, I played in Amritsar Triangular. I made 171 against the Parsis. In another match of that tournament, I had the best bowling performance of my whole career. I took 15 wickets, 8 in first inning and 7 in next.
Could you tell me in brief about your record in the Ranji Trophy?
I played in Ranji Trophy for nearly 25 years. I scored 6,312 runs and made 22 centuries. Both these remained as records for many years in my days. We played only knockout matches. This means that I had sometimes only 1 or 2 matches in a season. I also took 291 wickets. With my medium pace bowling, I played both on the turf and matting wickets.
I think this should be taken into consideration when the records are considered these days. But were you happy with your career record?
I feel I had a good record as I scored over 18,000 runs with an average of about 58. I made 60 centuries, of which 2 were triple one and 8 double one. 3 times I scored a century in each innings of a match. Most of my runs were made when my side was in difficulty. I felt happy that acknowledgeable critics praised my style of play. As a medium pace bowler, I took over 500 wickets. In a friendly match at Pune, I took only hat-trick for Baroda against Maharashtra in 1941. I shared in 8 partnerships over 300. It is my Indian record.
By all accounts, it must be a magnificent record, and you must be excellent in all strokes. What strokes did you make?
I made almost all strokes in the game, but my favorite strokes were the cover drive and the on drive. I also like to hook short, pitch short, possibly because of my rather unusual grip. I could hook towards mid wicket more often than most. For my cover drive off the back foot, many times I drew a little away from the wicket to execute a shortcut, and pulls were also among my scoring strokes.
So, most people are not very happy against pace, but were you happy against pace?
On my Australian tour, I scored a century in each inning in a test when 2 of the fast bowlers in the world, Lindwall and Miller, were the opposing bowlers. In a test match, I made another 100 against the same 2 bowlers. Next season, when the West Indies also depended on fast bowlers, I scored nearly 550 tests. In 1952 in England, I faced Truman, who bowled very fast and quite well. In 3 successive test innings against him, I got 50 and 49 in the fourth. I may say that I never flinched from facing fast bowling.
I think that's a convincing proof. But how did you face spin bowling?
I equally played forward. I usually played forward and used my feet when facing spin. Most of the time I could spot a googly by looking at the hands of the bowler at the moment of the delivery.
Well, that is not which all batsmen could do. I know 1 or 2 batsmen who just had a look at the googly after it was sent down. But how would you have fared in today's limited overs cricket?
I played in Lancashire League cricket, on which today's limited overs cricket is best. I adjusted very well to the league cricket in my days. I feel certain that I would have done equally well if I have playing today's limited overs cricket.
Yes, that is what is said about masters. They say a champion in one era could adjust to the needs of the other ones. But how did you serve cricket after your active playing days were over?
I became a national selector in 1959. For the next 3 years, I was appointed the chairman of the Test Selection Committee. During my tenure as chairman, the selection committee appointed the test captain. we aimed at long-term planning. With that view, we appointed Mansur Ali Khan Pataudi as the vice captain, although he was only 21. An injury to contractor elevated him to the captain's post. He held that position for several years. He also encouraged other young players.
That seems to be a very sound policy indeed. Now, what honors did you receive in your cricket career?
I was made India's test captain both at home and for tours. This was highest honor for me as a cricketer. I was appointed national selector and later the chairman of the test selection committee. The government of India honored me with a Padma Shri. The MC made me the honorary member. The cricketing public honored me most, welcoming me whenever I went in my playing days.
Well, that seems to be a good acclamation all over. But you had written some books. What made you write your memoirs?
After my retirement, many of my admirers wanted me to write my cricket story. During my active days as a player, I had a similar request, but I was against writing anything while I was still playing. I was lucky to get a collaborator who had followed my career very closely. Because he took an active lead, my books could appear.
You have used the word books. That means plural. How many books did you write?
3 in English and 2 in Marathi. One of my books was translated into Hindi. I could not have done it all myself. To have somebody's active help is the accepted practice today.
Well, I should know since I had the honor to be associated with all your autobiographies. Well, we will share the same sentiment. Now, we shall come to some of your innings. Which do you regard as your best innings?
In the test, my 38 in the old test in 1952 was my best inning. It looks small, but consider the conditions. The wicket was rain affected and very difficult to play. Our score at one stage was just 6 runs with half the side out. We were in a danger of getting out for the lowest test total. The opposing attack was at its most dangerous. I held one end firmly. The fight back gave me such satisfaction. Another test innings I read next to this was my 145 in the second innings of the Adelaide Test in 947-48. On a wearing wicket against the best bowling in the world, I scored my century of the match. 6 of my teammates did not even open their account. The third innings I include among my best is my 309 in the Pentangular in 1943. I fought single-handed in making runs with support from my brother Vivek. I played attacking strokes too.
This is about your good ones. But now, coming to that other side, do you have any regrets in your life?
A few. I failed to get 100 on my first appearance at Lord's. I came very near to it, as I made 94. Another regret is that I did not score a test century in England on my two tours.
But you had a little compensation in, as you described, the mini test in 1951 when you scored a century. Anyway, that was some sort of compensation. Now, do you regret that you played cricket when there was not as much money then as it is today?
In my days, we played cricket because we loved the game. I may not have made a lot of money out of cricket, but it gave me employment, steady life, opportunity to travel to far and off places and meet great cricketers. Above all, cricket gave me a joy that cannot be contented in terms of money.